All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to my live session. So, children can actually survive in an instruction driven environment. Now, that is it. But if, as a parent, you want much more for your child, you want to raise a child who can think, then you cannot you cannot raise them in an environment that is driven by adults. You can't raise them in an environment where instruction is the order of the day. It's a 247 kind of do this, do that, do this, do that. So if you would want to raise children who would do more than just survive, you want to raise children who will thrive, who will think, who will take initiative, then the time to start getting them to do all of this is right now. And if that is the goal, then you must avoid an environment where instruction is a constant thing, an environment that is the child or the children are dependent on the instruction of adults solely. My name is Maribel Chima, and yes, it is good to be on your screen today. I am the founder of the Parenting Through Mentorship Academy and PTM Resources, and yes, the proud matron of the Mastermind Circle, where we nurture children and we hold their hands and guide them to be people who are not solely driven by instructions, but children who can start taking initiative right now. So by the time they become teenagers, they are already built to be resourceful and productive teenagers. All right. So, as I said, you have to be intentional if you're going to raise children who would think. Thinking is a skill that your child will be taught to do, or the environment should be created in order for your child to learn how to think. Children who do not think, or people who do not think, do not just simply not think because they are dumb. They do not think because an environment has not been created for us to think. Many of us, and I say so, many of us are still in that place where we still don't think, right? It was Thomas Edison that says that only about 5% of people really think. That 75% of people would rather die than think, okay, than allow themselves think. And 25% of people think that they actually think, but they do not think. So only about 5% of human beings really think. So the question you want to ask yourself is, are you a part of that statistic? So 75 people who would rather die than think. And do you want to raise a child who would be a part of the statistics? If you're going to change the narrative, or you're going to raise a child who is different, then the time to get them into that place where they begin to think is now, by raising them to be people who can think, by raising them to be people who can do more than just survive. You're raising them to be people who can thrive. All right, so welcome to this live session. Again, if you're catching the replay, do let me know that you joined and you're catching the replay. I have not done live sessions for a while. I have not been doing this, but I think we're going to be doing more of this, right? So yes, keep a date with us, all right? Come by and join us for our live sessions. We will do this. What's today? Today is Tuesday. All right, so today's Tuesday. We will do this on Facebook, about this time, 4:30 every Tuesday. So you can be a part of the conversation, all right, because we will bring to you conversations that affect you as a parent of young children, right, and parents of toddlers in many cases. All right, so thriving children are built when we raise them to think and when we raise them to act and take ownership. So when you raise your child to take ownership, when you raise your child to think, when you raise your child to push themselves to try new things, then you're raising a child who can thrive. They don't just wake up. Children don't just wake up and do all of these things that we're talking about. Okay, they are guided, they are led, and they are directed to be like that. Now, what you see in many cases with children who come out of systems where instruction drives those systems, or where they are dependent on instruction, is you find out that these children hardly would hardly take initiative. And so we hear parents a lot of the times complain, oh, I have a 10-year-old, I have a 9-year-old. The child can never do anything on their own. If you don't tell them what to do, they will never do anything on their own. Now, this is the thing, this is the issue. And this is what happens when parents are constantly, right, instructing children, and the children are dependent on the instructions of their parents to do everything. Now, let's talk about what a dependent environment, right? An environment where the child is dependent on instruction. Let's talk about how that environment looks. Number one, the kids only act when they are told, right? They only act when they are told. So it's how you go to a home and then you see children, right, with things scattered all around the place. You'll probably see something that is even dangerous, right? You see something that is dangerous right in the middle, of the house, the room, or the playground where the child is playing. And what you see is that the child will continue to go back and forth and will never take that injurious item, to the corner or something like that. What has happened, or what you're seeing there, is a child that is not even aware of their environment. It's a child that doesn't even have the ability to take the initiative to do something that is right. Now, that child would only move that thing when someone else, an adult perhaps, says to them, that thing is dangerous, move it from there. So if you notice that you have children who hardly do the right thing, now it's not because they do not know that that thing is the right thing to do. Because when you have conversations with them, or when you ask them questions, they will tell you everything that you need to hear as far as that thing being dangerous. Just stop and say to them, I need you to look around you. Look around you, look at the items on the ground, and tell me what you think about them. I promise you, the child will look, and the child will notice that thing and tell you that it's dangerous and it shouldn't be there. So, meaning the child has the knowledge, right? The child has the knowledge of what is good and what is bad. The challenge here is the child is unable to take the initiative to do the right thing without being told. Now, that is an indication that that child is growing in an environment that is an environment that is driven by other people's instruction, an environment that is dependent on the instructions of older people. All right. Now, the other thing you would see is the child will keep asking, what am I supposed to do next? So even after that child has done something, or the child, has been made to do something, you realize that when that one task is done, the child will ask, what should I do next? The child is not able to take, a cue from what they had just done, right? And even subsequently, you would think that by the next day, or in the future, when the child goes through that process again, or the child has the same situation, you would think that the child would be able to, remember what they did the previous time. But in many cases, the child would not remember. So working memory is a problem, or is a challenge, right? Because the child is not, being given an environment, right, where the child has been taught and the child has been guided, right, to learn and to internalize these things. I know at this point, some parents will say, oh no, but I tell them all the time. That's the other challenge, because we think that we need to keep talking for our children to do the right thing. In many cases, the talk doesn't work. For young children, you will have to teach them what to do. You will have to stay in there to guide them on what to do, and much more than that. We will be looking at a few of the things that you can start doing with your young to be children who can take initiative, if you want them to be children who can direct themselves, and children who are not dependent on your instructions for them to carry out any task. Okay. Number 3 is when children children like that will not take responsibility unless they are being supervised. So children who are raised in instruction dependent environments will not take responsibility except someone is there to supervise them. Now, as I said in the first, first example, or the number one, right? These children do not necessarily, they're not necessarily ignorant of what is meant to be done. So it's not a case of you don't know. It's not a case of what you don't know you cannot give. It is a case of the child knows what is right. The child knows what is wrong. The child knows that this thing is supposed to be done, right? But the child just lacks the ability to push themselves or to take the initiative to do these things. And it happens, right, when you see that your child is not taking responsibility, especially for the things that they know how to do, the things that they've been taught to do, the things that they're expected to do. When they don't take initiative, then you know that perhaps your environment is driven by too many instructions, and so the child is dependent on you to say do it for the child to do it. And now this is the mechanism behind it, right? When children, grow up in an environment where the parent or the adult is always micromanaging. Now, the parent or adult has given a specific way that things have to be done, and it has to be their way or the highway. So it has to be their way, their time, and all of that. The child is not allowed to, introduce their individuality into the task that they do. The child is not allowed to apply themselves. And so, because of that, the child is constantly waiting for the prompt of that adult or waiting for the prompt of that parents in order for them to take initiative. So when that prompt doesn't come, right? When that prompt doesn't come, you find out that the child sits there. In our African culture, how we pride ourselves, and we say, when you go out, those of us from, generation, no, those of us who are millennials, right? And from generation X, we hear us pride ourselves and say, oh, when my mother gives you the eye. So you realize that in many cases, you don't do the right thing, or you don't do what you're meant to do. And then you have to wait to get the cue from your parents. You have to wait for your mom to give you that eye. You have to wait for your mom to practically give you that command for you to do the right thing. So it starts with all of those subtle things, all of those small things, and all of those, behavior that have been passed down to us by our parents. And so we are here raising children in the 21st century, and some of us are still in that space where our children will not make a move. Our children will not do anything until we instruct them, or we give them the eye, or we give them the sign, okay, for them to do. Some of our children will practically ask us before they even eat food, right? We like to pride ourselves and say this is discipline, but there's a need to go back and look and ask yourself, is this really discipline, or it's a classical case of a child not being able to take initiative, or a child not being able to do anything until there is the prompting of the adult. All right, you want to pay attention to this. All right, the first one is they want to be corrected instead of them thinking for themselves. So children who come from environments that are micromanaged, children who come from environments where instruction is always the case, where they have to depend on the instructions of adults, you find out that children like this do not want to think. Children like this do not want to apply themselves. They don't want to, look for solutions. They would rather wait for you to find the solutions. So when there is a problem, you find that they are not in the place to proffer solutions. They don't even allow themselves think about the problem, not to talk of profiling a solution. They practically, they practically think that it is an adult task to proffer solutions. So there is no oil in the house, and so the food is not going to be cooked because everybody is waiting for mommy to come and produce oil so that they can cook. So if your children are in that space where they can't go ahead to think of what to substitute, they can't go ahead to think of, okay, what other thing can I do? Plan B, when there is a situation, then you need to go back and think about it. You are probably raising them in an environment that is instruction dependent, right? And one of the reasons why you see this is you find out that sometimes you have children who try to do something. I've seen videos on social media, right? There was this particular one where the girl had gone ahead and she had made something for her mom to eat, right? And then she brought it to her mom. The mom took one look at the food and she started to complain so badly. She complained so badly and she was so upset with the child. And of course, it all ended in the fact that, as far as she was concerned, the child wasted her food. Now, when things like this happen, even for children who have tried or children who are trying to take the initiative, they withdraw when this is the kind of response or reaction that they get from their parents. So parents, we need to start paying attention to some of these things. That's why we say introduce your children to the things that they need to do and give them the opportunity to grow. Growth is in the mystic. Growth is in the mess. Okay, we will come to that eventually. And then the last one I'm going to be sharing today is when you find out that the child doesn't do anything except they are reminded. You practically remind them to do their homework. You remind them. The only thing you don't remind them to do is to eat and to most likely, right, use screens. So you find out that child, you have a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, even your 12-year-old that will not remember to do their homework until you remind them to do it. They will not remember to do anything at all until you remind them. Now, are we saying that prompts and reminders are not okay? No, prompts and reminders are okay. But there's something that is more than that prompt or the reminder coming from you directly. Because every time it comes from you, then it is you who is initiating that task. How about creating a system that reminds them to initiate the task? Because the goal is to get the child to the place where the child can be the one to say, it's time to do this. Or where the child can get to the point where the child can actually initiate that task, or the child can be the one, to start that task, straight up. Now, that's the goal. That's what we are looking at, right? So rather than position yourself to be the micromanager that is constantly saying it is time, the way you have in a school system where you have the timer, the timekeeper, and the timekeeper is the one who is constantly ringing the bell to help the children navigate or transition to the next thing. Now, in your home, if you make yourself that timekeeper, imagine that the principal of the school makes themselves that timekeeper. So what you're having there is the principal is not equipping the children. He's not equipping the children. He's not helping the children, right? He's not helping the children, right, to navigate on their own, right? So that way you find out that children like that will just sit down and depend on the adults to be the one to do everything for them. So it's the same thing in your home. If you make yourself the timekeeper, you make yourself the supervisor, you make yourself the everything, you will overwhelm yourself. And more than overwhelm yourself, you will raise children who are dependent on instructions. So that's why you see young people go into the workforce. You see young people after NYSC, you see young people, sometimes even after their master's degree, they go to the workforce and you realize that they're simply there, unable to start anything, unable to do anything until someone comes to say, you need to do this, or have you done this? Now, the challenge is not because they are lazy. In many cases, it's not. It's just simply something that came right from their childhood. That whole dependence on people being the one to tell you what to do. And then we say the children are selfish. Oh, Gen Zs are selfish. Oh, this generation of children are selfish. It's because as parents and caregivers, we have not taught them to put their foot out on their own. We have not taught them to take the initiative. So if it's nothing, if it's something that does not concern a direct benefit to them, their screen time, what goes into their mouth, what goes into what they wear, anything that does not center around them, they will not take initiative, because they believe that every other thing in this world, apart from what is their particular need, is the job of the adult to carry, or is the job of the adult to initiate. Now, if you're going to raise an outlier in this generation, if you're going to raise a child who is different, who will stand out, then you need to step back and help your children begin to take initiative and not raise them in environments where they are dependent on instructions. Now, how do we change this? Okay, I'm here for just 30 minutes. Okay, so let's take the next 10 minutes to talk about how we can begin to change this so that we can raise children who can start taking initiative, who are not afraid to fail. Because one of the reasons why our children do not take initiative is because they are afraid to fail. Remember the child I told you about, the one who went out of her way to make a meal for her mother, right? She finished making that meal with love, I'm very sure, because she was so proud to present it to her mom. Like, I have been thinking about you and I wanted to do something good. Okay, I knew that you'll be hungry and I wanted to make something for you to eat. And then she was with the meal, and the mom got all angry. So basically, that mother was saying, you have failed at this task, right? And so, because you have failed at this task, she's angry with you. Don't try it. Don't waste my food. Are you okay? In fact, she actually got some slaps in that video. I don't know whether it was a skit or just, I mean, these days you don't even know what's a skit and what is not. But the truth is, whether it's a skit or not, most of these videos are reality. They are mindset, okay? Because we want to project and we want to entertain people with the things that are everyday life, right? The things that happen in our everyday life. So basically, that child has just been told, you have failed woefully in the department of cooking. And that child was somewhere around 12, thereabout. So you see, that kind of child may withdraw, okay? Or because they are afraid of failing or being told that they have failed at something, they won't want to try. So many times you see young people not doing things is because they are more afraid of failing than they're more afraid of failing than they are of trying. So because they don't want to fail, they would rather not try. So let's look at how we can begin to change that starting today, especially if you're a parent of a young person. We work with children between ages 5 and 10, okay? Even your children up to 12 years old, this will apply to them. So if you're a parent of children who are this young, you want to start doing these things right now so that by the time your children get to age 10, 11, and 12, they are already set in their ways and they are not afraid to take initiative. They are not afraid, right, to push themselves, and they're not afraid to fail because they already know that failure is something that happens on the path to success. And so when they fail, they know to get up and start again because they know that with every trial you get better. All right. So number one, you want to shift from telling them to training them. Right. So I said earlier on how parents will come and say to you, you don't know what you are saying. Do you know how many times I've told this child? I've told him more than 100 times. Don't put these things here. Parents, we need to move from telling to training. How is the child supposed to do this? Can you show them how? Can you have them watch you do? Can you have them watch you do this repeatedly? Can you be consistent with doing that thing? That's way that you say is the right way. Because sometimes we say, okay, this is what we want the children to do. But 1 minute we're doing it this way, the next minute we're doing it a different way. Sometimes we're even doing it in the negative way that the child is not meant to do it. But we want to act like, okay, I'm an adult and so I have the permission to do it as I like. You are a child, you should stick to doing it the right way, for where it doesn't work. Because your child is more likely to do what you do than do what you say. So you need to stop telling. We need to stop telling and we need to start doing. Doing and training. How do you do that? You do that by first showing the child the right way to do it. Now you want to also ensure that the child watches you do this consistently, okay? Consistently. If the child has to see you do this 5 times, let the child see you do it the right way those 5 times. If the child has to see you do this, let the child see you do this correctly. If the child has to see you do this, let the child see you do this passionately. If the child has to see you do it, let the child see you do it happily. All right? Because for some of us, you'll be like, oh, I even do it the right way. But hey, you are constantly doing it grudgingly. If the child sees you as doing this thing, if the child sees you doing a particular thing angrily or from a place of, dissatisfaction, then the child associates that task with stress. The child will associate that task with stress. So the reason that child would not even want to do that thing is because the child has seen how stressful it is for you. So you see, dear parents, some of us, mothers especially, you come back from work, you have had a hard day, you are tired, and all of that. There's always one thing or the other to complain, your child to complain about. Your child is watching, okay? And there is no way you can cook and complain from the beginning to the end of the meal. There is no way you can cook and you frown the entire time and you want your child to think cooking is a beautiful activity. No, all the lessons that come with that activity will be lost because you have portrayed that activity as a stressor. You have portrayed that activity as an activity that gives no sense of satisfaction. I say this all the time. For a child, an activity with a sense of satisfaction is equal to motivation. So are you doing it happily? Are you enjoying it? Are you doing it gladly? There you go. Your child is ready to go with you because the child can see how this thing can produce such a beautiful result, in the way that you take it, you accept it, and you enjoy it. Okay, so number 2 is build routines and systems that they can follow independently. Okay, so rather than, now some people will be like, yeah, but you said they shouldn't do it the same way you do it. No, you want to create a routine, right, together, right? Especially when your children are older. In fact, for any age of your children at all, right? There is something that happens when children do things with you, right? They get a sense of, I am also important. They get a sense of, I am valuable. They get a sense of, I am bringing something to the table. They get a sense, so they get that sense of relevance when you invite them to do things with you and you do them together. All right. So when you invite them to create these routines in your home together, you invite them to put things in place. Now, this is how I do it in my own home. Right. The children are going on holiday, and I ask them, okay, it's the holiday. We already know that we don't sleep our life away simply because it's the holiday, isn't it? All right, but I'm going to make it a bit flexible. So what time do you want to wake up? So rather than say, oh, everybody wakes up at 6 o'clock in this house, I could say, or I said during this holiday, I said, okay, this is the window. You have between 6 o'clock and 8 a.m. to wake up. I want you to go ahead and choose. What you have just done is you have just given that child power. The child will feel like, okay, I'm the one making this decision. It's my decision. I'm the one that is bringing this to the table. And so everybody wants their project to work, right? So because the child is the one bringing it on the table, they want their project to work. Okay, yes, I can hear you. Parents of teenagers, you don't know anything. Okay, for my teenager, even after that, it doesn't work. Most of the time, it's because this didn't start as early as possible. But it's okay. It's okay. They say the day you wake up is your morning. So yes, your teenager you may be struggling with that teenager. Your teenager may be dragging their feet around it. Stay in there. That's the part that parenting comes in. Intentional parenting is patience. Intentional parenting is the long haul. So stop looking for quick fixes. Stop looking for sharp. Sometimes you have to stay in there for some time. Who knows? You may have to stay in there for 1 month. You may have to stay in there for 3 months. Some of us have stayed on a particular thing for 10 years. Oh, yes, parents. You may have to stay in on that particular one for 10 years. But the goal is that there is a place you're trying to get to, and you're not giving up on that child. Because every time you throw in the towel and you decide to go the route of shouting and screaming and beating, right? What you are doing is you are doing quick fixes. Because the truth is, if the beating works, then they should have stopped, isn't it? So it means that the child is still going through the process. It's just that in that process, you are losing connection. In that process, you are going apart. In that process, the child is becoming resentful. In that process, you are yourself are becoming bitter and resentful towards that child. So many other things could go under the water in that process. The child will still take the time, right, to actually internalize it or never internalize it if you're going about it the right way. So yes, a child that you need to be in there with for 10 years will probably take that whole 10 years, more years, or never, even if you beat them. What will just happen is, for every time that you do the shouting and the beating, you get some sense of, sorry, I am getting hot. So you get some sense of, oh, the child, I have won, because now under duress, because of fear, the child does what you want. But my dear, move away from the system for some time. Okay, just go away, don't be there, and you realize that that's behavior, or doing the right thing, around that behavior is synonymous to you. When you are not there, the child will go right back to all that you don't want to see. So why wouldn't you rather stay in there, retain your connection with the child, have the child's ears and hearts, okay, at all times, while you create a system and a routine that you will follow consistently. I promise you, the consistency and the connection will make your journey shorter. So if you, like me, had to go through a whole 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years to get something, I promise you, if you didn't do that lovingly, it probably would have taken you 20, double that time to achieve, the same result. All right. So we need to look at these things, from this perspective. All right, let's roll. I need to stop in the next 5 minutes. Okay, the next one is ask more questions than you are giving answers. All right, ask more questions to your children. All right, ask them about the decisions that they make. When they decide to do something, ask them why. Understand the why behind what they do, and teach them to understand the why behind the decisions that they make. When you do this, you're teaching, or you are raising children who are rational. You're raising children who are you're raising children who can reflect, right? So you raise children who can reflect. You're raising children who can stop and evaluate the results or the outcomes that they have. When you learn, or when you teach them to see the why behind what they are doing, ask them questions rather than giving them answers. What do you think you need for this activity? What do you think you need to achieve this? Why did you do it this way? Which other way could you have done it? Ask them all of these questions, even when they are wrong. Okay, even when they've done wrong or they failed, you want to ask them those questions too. Okay, this thing that happened, what do you think you could have done, right? What do you think you could have done, differently to get a better result? Ask them this question. When you do that, you help them reflect. Now, children who reflect, children who are able to evaluate their actions, are children who are able to take the initiative to do them differently next time. And the truth is, you empower them when, rather than punish them and come down hard on them when they've made mistakes, you step back and you allow them give you the reasons why they have done this, and then you're able to walk through, right, that failure together, and you allow them provide their own solutions, right, to that problem and how they will attack it the next time. I promise you, the next time that child that has gone through this process is very more likely to do better and differently than a child that you yelled at. What am I saying? Like, the child would definitely do better than a child that was beaten, a child that was yelled at, and a child that was, told what to do the next time without, an input from them. The next one is give them ownership early. Parents, we cannot overemphasize this one. Let your children start early. I wrote a post today and I said that if you want to raise children who are not dependent on you and an environment where your instruction is not everything, you need to get them to start doing chores as early as age 2. Your 2-year-old can do chores. Your 2-year-old is already resourceful. The problem is you are not allowing them exercise these muscles. Your 2-year-old is capable of, a lot of things. They can help you. They can make a difference if you allow them. So the question is, are you going to allow them? Now, the child who can make decisions, or who can make small decisions like, should I rinse the bottle before putting the water? Or Is the table dirty? Okay, yes, it is. Then I would clean it. That's the child already making small decisions, right? So a child who can make small decisions at age 2, okay, and they are confident about those decisions, right, would make a decision at age 14 without batting an eyelid, right? Now, the reason we raise people who are constantly second guessing themselves, like many of us are constantly second guessing ourselves. Some of us are just coming out of that place now as adults, okay? And that's because we were not given the opportunity to start to take responsibility as early as possible. So if you're going to raise children who can make decisions, informed decisions right early, right, and take initiative, then you need to start doing it as early as possible. Today, I ask my 16-year-old, right, what his thought is on real, like, major issues. And I can actually run with what he says because I can trust, that he has put his thoughts into the decision that he's giving me, or the choice that he is, or option that he's giving me. And why is that? It's because we have trained our children, we have allowed our children to figure their way through things. We've allowed them to, find path and, to navigate through challenges, right? I would ask my 10-year-old, yes, I would ask my 10-year-old pertinent questions, right? The kind of question that the average child is afraid to give you the right answer because they are afraid, or they don't know how you would take it. My 10-year-old will give you the answer, and apologize if it actually comes across the wrong way, or if it actually rubs off on you wrongly. She would apologize. She would say something like, Mom, I think you need to I think you need to do less work when you come home, and let work be something that has a fixed time. It's taken away from family time and all of that. I'm sorry, if this comes across as being judgmental, but I just feel someone needs to tell you the truth. That's how blunt she can get. And it's not just me. She'll say the same thing with her father, and say the same thing with, to anyone who cares to hear, right, or to listen. And the thing is, we've taught them to do this respectfully, but not hold back, your thoughts, right, and not hold back your choices, right, when it comes to the things that you know about. Right. So this is how you empower children. Because the truth is, children who cannot say no to you at home, children who cannot give you feedback at home, will go into systems outside your home, and they will be mute even when things are going wrong, because you have taught them that their voice does not matter at home. So if you're going to raise children who will take initiative, then you have to raise them to be bold people who can trust the choices that they've made over the years. And that's why it's important that you start early to allow them take responsibilities. It's important that you allow them to start taking initiative as early as possible. The last one is, you must introduce project execution in your home. Very critical. We take this for granted, right? So when you see schools send your children homework every time, and then once in a while, once in a month, or once in a term, they send projects that will take the children 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month to do. It's because the schools understand the place of project initiation, going through the process of execution, staying in there on task, of course, being resilient, researching, looking for ways to achieve your goal, failing, getting back on task, trying again, and of course, seeing that task through to the end. Schools understand that this is a powerful process in the life of a child, and in the growth of a child. That's why they do it for schools who do it. My children's school do this once in a term. They have like that major project once in a term. I incorporated this into my parenting as early as possible. So our children will have weekly projects. Okay, when they were younger, we would do weekly projects and we would do weekly presentation. Like they will actually put together. That's how the kids learned to put together PowerPoint presentation. By the time our daughter was 5, she could actually put a PowerPoint presentation because she has to do a presentation at the end of the week. At first, she would do cardboard presentation where we always had cardboard paper when the children were growing. We still have cardboard paper in the house every time. All right. So she would actually draw. We allow you express yourself and tell us what you have been up to with your own language, your own expressions, with your own examples, with your own researches and all of that. What we're doing is we are getting the children to take initiative. We're getting them to stay on task and not be afraid to discover things for themselves. All right. And so as they grow older, the project became monthly projects sometimes and all of that. And then we introduced one in our home where we got the children to do a first decade project. So by the time you get to 10 years old, between 10 and 11, we want you to think of something that you want to do that the world can benefit from, that humanity can benefit from. Put it together and then let's have it. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to launch something big, but you must launch something, or we encourage you to launch something. And because the children understand the why behind this, because the children understand and it is presented in a way that is fun, and it is presented in a way that is self-discovery and the child expressing their particular interest and need, the children embrace it and they do it exceptionally. So our son wrote a book. Where are the books? Okay, my books. Always return my books when you're done with them. So someone took my books from here. So our son wrote his first book, Baby Steps. Right? Baby Step was his first decade project. Now he wrote that book in less than 1 month. Do you know why? Because when it was time to execute that project, he decided that he was going to use his journal. So it was all memoirs from his journal, events and things that have happened in his life, right from when he started journaling from age 6. So he put his journal together and he started sharing the experiences from his journal. And that became his first year project. Our daughter has written small stories that she's been keeping. Now she's thinking of her first decade project. She's 10 going on 11. She's thinking of her first decade project and she has so many options. She can put a collection of her small books together, or she is into arts and crafts. So she's thinking, okay, maybe she'll do a scrapbook, right, of all her arts and crafts, and all of that. Now, what you have done is you have put the child in that space where the child sees themselves as an inventor. The child can see themselves as a creative. The child can see themselves as someone who can start something. The child can see themselves as someone who is capable. All right, this is so important and this is huge if you're going to raise children who are not dependent on instructions and children who can take initiative. So we know this and we know how powerful these things are. This is why we put together the challenge for April. So in the Children's Mastermind Circle and in PTM Resources, in our community or academy, what we do is we hold the hands of young children and we guide them on the path to build the right habits and, of course, to create the right system for them to begin to achieve the things that will help them become resourceful teenagers and help them navigate through life effectively. Now, we understand that the 1 day, 2 days teaching here and there is good. They will learn instructions, okay? They will listen to instructions. They will listen to what is good. They will listen to what is right. But a lot of times, these things do not manifest into things that the children can do on their own and internalize. So we know that if we want to, especially for this group of children, young children, 5 to 10-year-olds, 5 to 12-year-olds, then they need to put their hands to the plow. They need to practice consistently. Consistency has to be a part of it all in order for the child to manifest the way we want to see that. So that's why we don't just do courses. We don't just do 1 day, 2 days courses. We do challenges so that we're with the children for at least 14 days. So we have challenges that are for 14 days, 21 days, even 30 days sometimes, because we want to. We are not about the quick, exciting, we're excited, knowledge. We're about, after all of that, can we hold your hands and take you through the process so that you can watch us, so that you can try, so that we can watch you, so that we can give you feedback, so that we can go on the journey together, and then we can see you emerge as someone who is beginning to trust in your own ability. That is the goal. So, are you a parent of a child between ages 5 and no, we're going to go this one, we're going to start with the 7-year-olds. Are you a parent of a child that is between 7 and 13-year-old? Then you want to be a part of our challenge this April. Okay, so our April challenge is what we call the Purpose Builders Challenge for children. Yes, so a Purpose Builders Challenge. In this challenge, we are going to have the children pick a task or pick a project, right? And they can call this their first decade project if you want. They will pick a project, something that is within or in the area of what they love to do, what they enjoy doing, what they do so well, or what it is that they want to build themselves in. And we will stay in there with them and guide them to come up with a project in that area. And we will work with them throughout those 14 days to help them take the initiative, start the process, and then go through that process. The end goal is that they are able to execute. And as I said, execution doesn't necessarily mean that you are out there, but you are able to execute something that you can see the beginning, you see the process, and you can see the end, and you are able to, get a sense of satisfaction and be proud of yourself. We've seen many children come out with execution and actually creating a full product and service that they can, begin to use in their home, in their families, in their neighborhood, and some people even launch out something big after this project. So if you'd like your child to be a part of the Purpose Builders Challenge, where we will be going on a 14-day challenge to help your child start and finish a project, then why don't you join us? Okay, so we have the information on your screen that you need to jump right in to be a part of this challenge. Grab a place for your child in this challenge already. Okay, so all that, oh, my child doesn't take initiative, bring them to this challenge. We want to help your child start understanding why it is important to take initiative, and not just knowing, but to push themselves to start taking initiative, even from this very young age. I tell you, get your child on this page or in this space right now. And by the time they are teenagers, you will be glad that you did. Our son just closed for the day. He just went home to make food for his grandma. He came to work today, not because I asked him, but because he's on holiday and he chose to work during the holiday. He chose to come to work with me during the holiday to work because he understands the place of his contribution, because he understands the value that he carries, and he knows that he is valuable enough and he can bring something to the table. And so if you can, why not? It comes with children who have been guided to start projects, finish projects, take initiative, and of course, believe in themselves. I'm going to go off right here today. So if you'd like to be a part of the challenge, use the information on the screen and get your child on board. You will be glad you did, and your child will be transformed by this experience. Not be by shouting, you'll just get them in and you will see how your child will be transformed by this experience. Thank you for joining me. As I said, you can join me every Tuesday at 4 p.m. We started at 4:30 today, but we'll do it at 4 p.m. every Tuesday, just about 30-40 minutes. And we will be talking about something really transforming, right? Because as parents, this journey is a long haul. So let's do it together. All right. We love to partner with you. Have a fantastic day today, and of course for the rest of the day. And thank you for joining me. If you're catching the replay or you caught the replay, let us know where you joined us from. Thank you again. Bye. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now. Bye.